Good afternoon, everyone. First of all, I would like to thank the Congress for the excellent organization and for letting us present our topic of framing sustainability. Regarding the topic of our presentation, Ecolinguistic Insights into Environmental Narrative, I would like to begin by saying that traditional linguistics was mainly devoted to teaching and research, whereas ecolinguistics seek to harness the potential of linguistics by analyzing different discursive approaches to the relationship between nature and the environment in order to ensure the survival of ecosystems. The concept of ecosystem should be understood in a broader sense, as it encompasses both the environmental ecosystem, which includes the animal and plant world, the physical environment, and, on the other side, the cultural ecosystem, which encompasses the world of language and the world of knowledge, the so-called social environment. Environmental issues concern humanity. This primarily affected the natural sciences but also the humanities, including applied linguistics, which began to study the relationships between language, society, and the environment, and more specifically ecolinguistics, which investigates that role that language plays in the development and possible solution of ecological and environmental problems. According to linguist Alvin Phil, the most important figure in scientific activity in the German-speaking world, ecolinguistics goes beyond syntax, semantics, and pragmatics, and defines it as a new branch of linguistics, which does not consider the role of language from the point of view of its usefulness to people, to mankind in general, but rather seeks its meaning in relation to the coexistence of all beings. In the following, the origins and definitions of ecolinguistics will be defined. The term ecolinguistics first used in 1985 by linguist Gallego. He said, "Ecolinguistics is the study of the linguistic representation of natural phenomena." In the 1970s, linguist Einar Haugen defined ecolinguistics as the study of interactions between any given language and its environment. In the 1990s, linguist Michael Halliday, in New Ways of Analyzing Meaning, The Challenge to Applied Linguistics, was the first to argue that linguistics should address extra-linguistic problems, especially ecological issues. Between the 1980s and 1990s, the German-speaking branch of ecolinguistics developed, pursuing different objectives to international linguistics. The most important figure is the linguist Alvin Phil. His work, Ökolinguistik, eine Einführung, published in 1993, covers the following points: ideas already researched, like linguistic ecology and ecological linguistics, the anthropocentrism of language, as well as the ecological criticism of language. According to Phil, ecolinguistics is now understood as that branch of linguistics that considers the aspect of interrelation, whether between different languages, between the speakers of groups of people, or between language and the world, and advocates the preservation of the small for the benefit of a diversity of phenomena and relationships. The ecological linguistic approach calls for the use of language to transform the anthropological view towards a more ecocentric, biocentric, and holistic view of the world. Peter Finke and Wilhelm Trampe are prominent figures in that approach. Now I will talk about the foundations of ecodidactics, as outlined by Trampe. This approach connects language education with ecological thinking. It treats language not merely as a tool for teaching vocabulary or grammar, but as an integrative element that links different disciplines. The main goal is to foster ecological awareness and to encourage learners to reflect on the relationship between humans and the natural world. The methodological core of ecodidactics is critical discourse analysis. CDA helps reveal the hidden ideologies, assumptions, and power structures that shape environmental discourse. Ecolinguistics examines the stories we live by, the narratives that influence our behavior and contribute to ecological crisis. A key part of this work involves analyzing discursive strategies in texts from the media, corporations, or politics. These texts often frame environmental problems in ways that shift responsibility from systematic actors, such as companies and governments, to individuals. Ecosemiotics, on the other hand, can be defined as the study of science processes that underlies ecological phenomena and shape human-environment relationships. In contrast to traditional approaches that focus mainly on written or spoken language, ecosemiotics extends their scope of analysis to all kinds of science systems: images, films, gestures, icons, and symbols. This expansion is closely related to the way communication works today. Contemporary communication is highly multimodal. People interact through social media images, short videos, memes, and emojis. As a result, a significant part of meaning making no longer takes place only through verbal language, but through visual and other semiotic resources. For that reason, extending ecolinguistics into ecosemiotics is not just useful, but in the long run, it becomes inevitable if we want to fully understand how our relationship with the environment is constructed. The aim of ecosemiotics is to investigate all semiotic interactions between organisms, especially humans, and their environment. This includes asking how different signs represent nature, what kind of values and worldviews they promote, and how they may reinforce explicit or implicit anthropocentrism. In other words, ecosemiotics helps us see how science systems position humans in relation to the rest of the ecosystem. Ecolabels are a particularly practical example of ecosemiotic science. One major advantage of using ecolabels in the language classroom is that they are internationally recognized and already meaningful to most learners. Students typically know what these symbols stand for, which makes them an effective starting point for instructional activities. Before we focus on our study on ecolabels, it is important to understand the broader context: the ecological footprint of tourism. Mass tourism has become a key economic driver worldwide, generating jobs, income, and infrastructure. However, this growth comes with severe ecological consequences. Tourism contributes to resource depletion, for example, through high water and energy consumption, produces large amounts of waste, and accelerates biodiversity loss. These impacts are especially visible in coastal regions such as Spain, where mass tourism has transformed entire landscapes and ecosystems. In response to these problems, various market-based instruments emerged. One important example are ecolabels. Ecolabels are intended to create transparency for consumers by signaling which tourism products or services meet certain environmental and social standards. In theory, they should help shift demand towards more sustainable options and encourage businesses to reduce their ecological footprint. As language teachers, we feel responsible and play an important role in achieving some of the Sustainable Development Goals set out in the UN's 2030 Agenda. These include Goal 4, Quality Education; Goal 8, Decent Work and Economic Growth; Goal 11, Sustainable Cities and Communities; Goal 12, Responsible Consumption and Production; and last, Goal 13, Climate Action. We want to look at this topic through an ecolinguistic lens. This means examining how language is used to present sustainability, often in ways that deserve critical scrutiny. A key aspect is framing, how messages are shaped to convey a green image. This brings us to the issue of greenwashing. Our critical role is to assess these claims carefully. We need to distinguish genuine sustainability efforts from superficial or misleading promises. Labels are a big part of this problem. They are often vague and confusing, which makes it difficult for consumers to know what's real. The risk is clear. Consumers can be misled by vague or deceptive sustainable statements without even realizing it. That's why critically examining language and labels is so important in separating genuine sustainability from greenwashing. That's why we conducted a study. Our study design was a cross-cultural survey on environmental consciousness. The objective was to explore how ecological awareness is framed both culturally and linguistically. We sampled participants from Spain and compared them with respondents from the DACH region, Germany, Austria, and Switzerland. For data collection, we used a survey that looked at general environmental consciousness, as well as participants' knowledge and recognition of ecolabels. The goal of the study was to highlight differences in sustainability discourse and ecolinguistic patterns across these regions, helping us understand how language and culture shape perceptions of what it means to be environmentally responsible. The results of the general question, "Are you familiar with the term environmental awareness?" show a difference of 10% fewer respondents in Spain compared to the results in the DACH region. However, in both cases, the results show that there is a high level of environmental awareness. Then we asked if they knew about various eco-labels. Here we show the results for Fairtrade as an example. However, the results for the Fairtrade eco-label are very different from those obtained in the first question. While 97% of German households are familiar with the label, only 31% of Spanish households are. Even fewer, only 26% of Spanish respondents have encountered it in their daily lives. This shows that the Spanish population interviewed is unaware of the meaning of this label as an ecological symbol. However, 45% connected it with ecological awareness, which shows that there is a lack of critical thinking about labels and, therefore, a need for education in this area. Future professionals need more than technical skills. They need ecological values. Education is key to making this happen. One effective approach is ecolinguistic training, where students learn to identify and critically challenge unsustainable narratives. In practice, this involves analyzing media content and corporate reports to spot greenwashing. The ultimate goal is to cultivate an eco-conscious mindset, shaping how future professionals think and act in a more sustainable way. The conclusion is clear. There is a current gap. Many people are not critical toward eco-labels. They often associate them with ecological awareness without truly understanding what the labels stand for, which weakens their effectiveness and limits informed consumer engagement with sustainable products. The ecolinguistic goal is to promote language that encourages critical thinking, supporting ecological integrity and social justice, and helping individuals make truly responsible choices.